Again, Prabhu took us through the hankering and lamenting aspect of the mind. So it is very important because ultimately mind is the basis of all relationships. Whatever relationship we have, and everything is relationship, and that is why we are seeing that the number of people who are getting depressed is increasing because of the major factor is the relationship. And that is because Krishna consciousness is void within them. If suppose Krishna consciousness is there, then we make Krishna in the center, and then we create a very, very formidable relationship amongst everybody. And that is so important. So many aspects were covered, and we understood that how to control the mind and how to make sure that, Prabhu gave that example of how even when Abhimanyu was no more there, he let go the emotions of Arjuna. He made sure that Krishna comforted Arjuna. So that was a big thing. So emotions are very much part of us. And that is why, when we have issues with the mind, issues with the relationship, and issues with so many other things, emotions are always part of us. So, and plus the most important thing is, as devotees, we support each other, we control each other, we make sure that devotees are taken care of. And that is what our yatra is all about, thanks to Srila Prabhupada and his disciples. So on that note, I'm seeing some of the devotees who were not there yesterday, so I'll just give a brief introduction of His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. And it's very, very small. So Chaitanya Charan, once. Okay. So Chaitanya Charan Prabhu has been practicing Krishna consciousness for more than 30 years. He is the direct disciple of His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. So who is the direct disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And Chaitanya Charan Prabhu is actually his articles. He's written so many books, more than 30 books on how to understand Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana. And plus he's also given speeches on Ivy League universities, Harvard, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Cambridge, Yale, and also in so many corporations, Intel, Google, Microsoft. So that, and plus Prabhu has also been a TEDx speaker, and he's spoken in UNESCO. So this is a 3-part series. So it started off with the mind, and today from the mind comes the tolerance part, how the mind affects the tolerance. And today's topic is when tolerance is beneficial and when tolerance is harmful. So request all the devotees to make the utmost out of this beautiful lecture. Chaitanya Charan Prabhu is not new to our congregation. He has been blessing our congregation for a very long time. So very soon, I'm sure we will be looking at Chaitanya Charan Prabhu giving his beautiful discourses in 217 Windsor Road. Hare Krishna. Over to you, Prabhu. Yes, there are more seats available here. You can all come in the front. Business class in the front so that you can.
Thank you for coming today once again. Just quick, I done a recap of yesterday's session here, writing it down. But before we start, how many of you were there yesterday? Okay, how many of you were not there yesterday? Oh, okay. How many of you are not there today? So, that can happen because of the mind, you know. You know, from the perspective of this, yesterday I talked about is body, mind, soul. You know, what happens when distraction is there? The body is here, the soul is here, but the mind is here. So then what happens is, our consciousness gets split. A little bit of consciousness coming out of the body, most of the consciousness is gone where the mind is. So this is where distraction happens. So when there is a long talk, the mind goes for a long walk. And if there's some humor, the mind comes running back. Hey, what was the joke? I also want to laugh. So, let me quickly explain what we discussed yesterday. Our topic is emotionally healthy spirituality. That means when we are practicing spirituality, how can we ensure that it improves our health and doesn't harm our health? So the topic we were discussing was about, broadly, if we consider spirituality and emotional health. So like physical health, we can say it can have a positive effect, it can have a negative effect, or it can be neutral, disconnected. So we want to see that the overall effect that we have is positive rather than negative. So yesterday I introduced the concept of the mind, how the mind is the link between the soul and the body, and the mind functions first of all as a link, as a root pathway. Then it also functions as a screen where it's not just neutrally passing through like water passing through. It's like a computer screen where the inputs are integrated and presented. Then it's not just what is presented, it is also what is recollected that comes out. So it's a memory device. And the mind also shapes our self-image. So it's like a mirror by which we look at ourselves. The mind is quite a complicated thing, but the important thing is that it is necessary for our functioning just as the body is necessary for our functioning. And the implication was that just as the body can get injured, the mind can also get injured. And we discussed the difference between emotions and desires. As emotions are associated with jnanendriyas, with information coming in. Desires are associated with the karmendriyas, with how we decide to act. So many times, almost every one of us has to control our desires, no doubt. But with respect to emotions, it's not just controlling, sometimes comforting is also required. So we discussed the story of Arjuna being consoled by Krishna after the death of Abhimanyu. And the takeaway was that the mind is a tool and we need to discipline it. But even when disciplining it, there are two approaches, controlling and comforting. And we can just avoid the perception, that is yada samharte cha. And we have the perception, but it does not have any impact on us. There is no emotion triggered within it. If there is emotion, but still we don't let it get to the intention. So that was a broad recap. And today I will move on to the topic of tolerance. Now, before I begin this topic, I would like to ask you, what does the word tolerance mean to you, and why do you think it is important? Okay, what does tolerance mean to you?
Hare Krishna. Let it go. If something happens that against our desire, then it's about acceptance and let it go. And how far we can accept the fact without affecting our own mental health.
Yes. So tolerance, we can say, that's a good point. It increases our acceptance. There are many times in which things will go wrong, things will go against our will. So at that time, it is important that we be able to accept it. See, the world often teaches that, like somebody is a great hero or a great achiever, they say, I never take no for an answer. That is like a very one-sided glamorization of a successful person. No, actually, success is not just I never take no for an answer. It is that how much I can take no gracefully. Okay, this is not working out. I'll accept this and I'll move to something else. So it is important that we learn to take no also gracefully. Hmm? And in fact, that is one major aspect of growing up. Like children, if they know something, they throw up a tantrum. Now, there's small children, they also need to be disciplined to some extent. They also need to learn that impulse regulation. But older people, definitely, we all need to be able to accept no when it comes in our life. Yes.
So one way to look at it apart from acceptance would be the spontaneous or impulsive urge to speak, or the demands of mind or anger or the body, including belly and genitals. That could be one where we regulate them in a finer way.
So impulse regulation, we could say. Impulse control or impulse regulation. There are two very significant points. In one sense, you could say acceptance is more for externals. Sometimes externally some bad thing happens, we should be able to accept it. Now, impulse regulation is more for internal. There's something inside us. Sometimes, in some comedy movies or something like that, one person does something wrong and the other person is angry, and you show like a cartoon character of that person. I'll beat up this person. Like that, they're doing something like that. Now in real life, that person doesn't do it, but the mind shows it. They're doing like that. So we all have a lot of impulses, and tolerance means we need to be able to regulate those impulses. Thank you. Good point. Yes.
I'll mention a couple of points, Prabhu. One is calling off our war with reality, so which is something which is inevitable or unavoidable. We should develop the ability to tolerate, the sort of provoking situation, as Srila Prabhupada puts it in the Krishna book. So calling off our war with reality is something which a skill that we need to develop. So if it's we need to keep the small things small, so that we can focus on the big things.
Yes. So that's an important point. So two distinct points over here. See what you talk about at acceptance. These can be occasional incidents, and then occasionally impulses come up. But there are things which are like repeatedly nagging us. So those also sometimes, okay, this is not going to change. Maybe I'm in a place where the weather is cold, and it is going to be cold. We are related with a person. If we are in a college, we are a room partner, or we have a friend, we have a relative. That person repeatedly keeps disappointing us. So now they just never live up to our expectations. Now we may push them to rise up to our expectations. But if that is not happening, some people can change, and some people, they can't change, but the only way we can live with them is if we change. We change means we change our expectations of them. So sometimes you just have to call off our war with it. This is not going to change. Yeah. True. And the second point you mentioned is that we want to keep small things small.
So that we can focus on the big things. If somebody is ignoring us, no big deal. If we get too much aggravated by that, or influenced by that, or sort of agitated by that we won't be able to focus on much bigger things in life.
Correct, yeah.
And the other point is that
the way these answers are going, all of you are stealing my entire class. But at least let me have the consolation that all of you together will steal my class, not you alone steal my class. We'll come back to you if you don't mind. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes, please. Yeah.
It will also show us the limitations or the break-even point. It's kind of always a learning for me. It shows like what is my limitation or the break-even point.
So, okay. Means are you saying this in terms of why we should tolerate, or are you saying this in terms of how much we can tolerate? Okay, so it reveals our as you said, breaking point. No.
Like how far you can go, like how much you can stretch the rubber.
So reveals our Our capacity, you can put resilience, capacity. Could use the word resilience. We'll see what it exactly it is. But trying to tolerate helps us to discover our capacity also. So that can go both ways. That I thought I was more tolerant than what I was actually, or I thought I couldn't tolerate this, but actually I was able to tolerate it. So it can go both ways. We may find that we are overestimated or underestimated. Yes, true. Thank you. Yes, Mata.
Tolerance is how much we can restrict our response or reaction to the external stimuli.
Yes, so tolerance means that the stimuli comes in, and then we talk about there is a response. So let's use the word at this point reaction. Reaction is a bit more unconscious. So reaction, how much can we restrict it? How much can we manage it? So many stimuli are going to come in our life. We should be able to restrict them to some degree. Yes, thank you. Neutralize is a dangerous word. Okay, no, but what do you mean by neutralize? Because nowadays, neutralize is the politically correct word for killing. The terrorists were neutralized. You have heard this usage?
Probably it's extension of Mataji's, like trying to restrict. Yeah.
So we could say, again, regulate our emotions. Stimulus reaction. Have we talked about emotions over here? Impulse regulation. We can add over here something like, okay, regulate emotions. Neutralize. Yeah. The meanings of words change also. I think we may have, earlier neutralize meant something else, but now it has got a particular connotation. Yeah. Yes, Vijay Vishnu. You have the mic? Oh, good. You have two mics. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess we're talking about tolerance and limits. What comes to mind first when I heard this was we should have the courage to change what can be changed and tolerate what cannot be changed and pray for intelligence to distinguish between the two.
Yeah, it's true. So, so what a change?
Have the courage to change what
Yes,
can be changed.
yes, I agree with you. I'm trying to think of brief brevity to put it in. So for change we need courage, and then let's put it changeable. For what is changeable we need courage. For what is non-changeable, we need that's where we need to tolerate, and then we need the wisdom or the intelligence to know the difference. Yeah, difference we have to understand. So a great point. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, please go ahead.
I just want to add one point to what Vijay Prabhu said, that change, if there are things which we can change, which is in our hand, like the kind of work hours I do, what is in my capacity. But as he said, some things are not in our capacity.
Correct.
So to not get bothered, bothered and just let our mind away from all those things what we cannot change. So that is tolerance.
Correct. Yeah. Good point. So tolerance, in one sense, what it says, it sort of frees our mind from a useless fight. It's an unproductive fight. What cannot be changed. No, if we keep fighting over it, we're exhausting our energy. We're exhausting ourselves. True. So where is this calling of our war with reality? Like free our mind. So from the unchangeable.
Another way of putting it is, what cannot be cured has to be endured.
Yes, what cannot be cured has to be endured. Nicely put. So you could say everything that happens, can this be cured or it has to be endured? So I was giving a class and one devotee quoted this, and after hearing this, many people became very thoughtful. So I was wondering, There was one Prabhupada disciple in America. He likes to make a lot of fun of my. He was a comedian before, so he was a comedian as well as a magician. So when we meet, he likes to make a lot of jokes at my expense. So that I also make jokes at his expense sometimes. So we have a lot of fun. So when he met me, he embraced me, and he said, "I feel as if I am embracing two Chaitanya Charans." So I said, "Prabhu, this is the sweetest way I've heard anyone say that I have gained weight." So he became very thoughtful when he said, what has to be cured, what can't be cured has to be endured. So I said, "Prabhu, you have any comment?" "Yeah." So yes, he said, "I'm wondering whether your class can be cured or has to be endured." So I'll talk about tolerance today using the same framework of Chit that we used yesterday. The concept, the implication, and the takeaway. So most of you have explained the concept. Let's look at it from a scriptural perspective. Which is the most well-known verse that we quote for tolerance from the Bhagavad Gita? 2.14. What is it? Matra sparshas tu kaunteya shito sukha dukkhadaha agam apayino nityas tam stitikshasva bharata. So let's look at the verse and its context to understand this. Those of you know, we can recite it together. Matra sparshas kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkhadaha agamapayino nityas tam stitikshasva bharata. So tam stitikshasva bharata. So 2.4, Krishna is talking about tolerance. Now, if you see, in the context, the verse itself is saying that there are things which are non-permanent, happiness and distress, heat and cold, they need to be tolerated. But if you look at the broader context of the Gita, what is Krishna saying to Arjuna that you should tolerate? There is a war about to be fought, and is Krishna telling Arjuna that, the Kauravas tried to dishonor Draupadi, they tried to burn you, they did all these things, you just tolerate them? Is that what Krishna's message is for tolerance? No. What he is telling is, tolerance is the pain of fighting Bhishma and Drona. That these are his venerable elders. For him, this fighting against them is the stuff of nightmares. These are not just his elders. These are the elders from whom he learned archery. These are the elders for whose pleasure he learned archery. And now these are the elders whom he has to kill with that same very archery. He just says, I can't do it. And Krishna is telling him, tolerate. So it's very important. Here, tolerance is not equated with passivity. There was one meaning of tolerance which, in the outside world, that's the first meaning that comes up in people's minds. That is, nowadays we talk about religious tolerance or cultural tolerance. Like just I think yesterday only there was a big anti-immigration rally over here in Australia. So those who are more liberals, they may value tolerance more. And those who are conservatives, with respect to this particular issue, they may say, we have to preserve our Australian identity, Australian culture, whatever it is. So now, tolerance is used in one more sense over here, is that it's something like acceptance, but tolerance is something which is unpleasant, something which is disagreeable, but it's unpleasant, it's disagreeable, we would not want it, yet it should be livable. When we talk about the word religious tolerance, what does it mean? That it basically means, different people have different religions, they have different ideas, and we should learn to live peacefully with it. Now there are some scholars of religion who say that religious tolerance itself is a very condescending idea. There should be religious respect, not just tolerance. Isn't it? So even the word tolerance in that context comes from more like an Abrahamic religious perspective where one way is the only way, our way is the right way, but we will tolerate what you others want to do. But we accept you. So, but that is also one sense. Something which is unpleasant, something which is disagreeable, it would be nice if it were not there, but it's there, we'll live with it. So, from that perspective, what Krishna is telling Arjuna, tolerate. So, Arjuna is also understanding what is he meaning to. So, before this comes 2.13. And 2.13, what is the verse about? Dehinosmin yatha dehe. It is basically giving intelligence. So, intelligence is to understand the difference between the body and the soul. Or, to put it in a broader sense, to understand what is the big thing and to understand what is the small thing. So, Prabhupada in the 10th chapter of the Gita explains that intelligence means to see things in their proper perspective. So, if we are taking a photo and we are taking a selfie of a group of people, and sometimes the selfie, the person whose photo is being taken, that person comes very large. And you may not like that, oh, my face is looking so bloated or whatever. Then we say, let's take a normal photo. So what happens, we want things to come in the proper perspective. So what is big should be big, what is small should be small. So intelligence means to see things in their proper perspective, to understand what are the big things and understand what are the small things. So this is what comes before. So tolerance has to come from intelligence. And the verse after this is 2.15. That is, Yam hi na vyathayanti te. Let's recite this verse. Yam hi na vyathayanti te. Purusham purusharshabha. Samadukha sukham dhiram. Somrutatvaya kalpate. By the way, are all of you able to see from behind or all of it tolerating? You are able to see? If that Prabhupada disciple will be there, I am not able to see, that's why I am able to tolerate. You would have said that. Okay. So now Krishna is saying, Yam hi na vyathayanti eti. Na vyathante is one who does not get agitated by this. Yam hi na vyathayanti eti. Purusham purusharshava. Arjuna, you are the best among human beings. So Krishna is encouraging Arjuna, you should be able to tolerate this. Samadukha sukham dhiram. One who says dhira. The word dhira had come just 2 verses before. Dhiras tatra na muhyati. So, samadukha sukham somrutatvaya kalpate. Amrutva is immortality. It is, such a person will attain eternal life. So this is transcendence. So Krishna is broadly talking about a sequence over here. With intelligence, we learn to tolerate. And through tolerance, we come to transcendence. So transcendence means, after some time that thing stops mattering to us. Like say, if you first come to Australia, it is much colder than India. Now, after you stay here for a few years, you still feel cold, but to a certain level, the body gets acclimatized to it. You don't feel that cold. So, we learn to transcend it. So, in one sense, from yesterday's perspective, transcendence means the perception is there, but the emotion doesn't come. Like the external temperature is low, but our body doesn't feel that sensation. So, this sequence, intelligence, tolerance, transcendence. So, the key point over here is that tolerance cannot be made into an isolated virtue. And tolerance cannot be made into the supreme virtue. I'll talk about these 2 points. That tolerance is not an isolated virtue. Oh, this is the only thing. The most important thing in life is tolerance. Well, not necessarily. It is not an isolated virtue. Certainly, it's not a supreme virtue. Even if you look at the other verse from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings, where also tolerance is talked about. Which is the verse? Trunadapi sunichena tarorapi sahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. So there the point is, through tolerance, the transcendence is kirtaniya sadahari. The point is, through tolerance, by learning to tolerate, we should be able to come to a position where we can constantly glorify Krishna. Our heart can be absorbed in the glorification of Krishna. So, this is the concept of tolerance. That tolerance enables us, tolerance starts by understanding what are the big things in our life, and tolerance enables us to go beyond the small things. Like small irritations stop bothering us after some time. Now, transcendence means to go beyond. Say, for example, if we go to a work environment and we go to a particular workplace and there are some people who behave in a weird way. Now, initially it might trouble us a lot. But if we focus on our work, we succeed in our work, we are able to make a big difference, then even if there is some one or two people who are behaving in a weird way, we will transcend that. It doesn't matter. So, like many of you, I don't know, if some of you may have been born in Australia, but in India, traffic is like a chaos. But most Indians who go there, they transcend the chaos. Isn't it? There is some order within the chaos. And everybody knows what is the order. Like, nobody seems to be following any rules, but still people get to their destinations. So what has happened is that it's almost like we have learned to tolerate that people may not follow the rules. People won't follow, I won't follow, but we'll all get to the destination. Now for somebody who doesn't have that tolerance, that transcendence, it's just like traffic itself seems to be like a nightmare. What is it? There's one yoga student from America. He was telling me that the only way I can survive traffic is by closing my eyes. In India, just let somebody else drive, let them trust it. I just there's so much anxiety. What is happening where? So now, tolerance is what leads to transcendence. So let's try to understand this now. The tolerance from two distinct points. So right now I'm still elaborating on the concept before we go to the implication. Yesterday I made the point that the mind is like the body. And just as the body can get injured, the body can get fractured, like that the mind can also get wounded. Now, while there is truth to that, in the mind, there is something more that is going on. That there is an objective element to it, and then there is a subjective element to it. How many of you are familiar with the word objective and subjective? Objective and subjective, okay. Now when I was giving, in India there is an exam for like National Talent Search exam where some of the most talented students, they get some scholarship from the government. So when I was in the final stage of the exam, the final interview was there. They asked me, have you heard of acid rains? So I said, yes. What are they? I said, I only heard of it. I don't know what it is. So the interviewer started laughing. He said that, I'll give you 0 for content and 100 for courage. So I hope your answer is not like that. And you are saying objective and subjective. So what does objective and subjective mean? Yeah. Objective is more factual.
Subjective is more your opinion. Your own perspective, your own opinion.
So subjective is more, it's in opinion. I would say, let's use the word, it's more experiential. Factual versus experiential. So, why is this difference important? That, say, if we consider, like yesterday I was giving the example, if somebody has got some wound and then we have to apply some cleansing oil, before we dress the wound. And then we apply that, that person winces. We say, don't be such a baby. Now the point over there is some pain, but it's not such a big pain. It's more like a discomfort. Now at the level of the physical injury, to some extent, there is some level of objectivity. How much pain is there? Although it cannot be completely objective, because with all our technological advancement, we don't have something like a painometer. Now there can be a scale of pain, like sometimes doctor may ask a patient, they're moving their arm, their hand is fractured. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much is your pain? And the patient then 1,000. So now what happens? So there is, but at least with the sort of physical injury and the associated pain, there's some level of objectivity. Now with respect to the mind, there is a certain significant level of subjectivity to it. So like sometimes you may say, this is a small thing. Why are you making such a big thing out of a small thing? Just live with it. Somebody spoke some hurtful words. Don't take it so seriously. But for us, it may not be very serious. But the problem is that for the other person, it may be quite serious. In fact, this is what happened at the time of the abduction of Sita. Initially, when they saw the deer, Sita said, Ram, can you just get the deer for me? And she thought, oh, the deer is here, just Ram will just run and catch it and bring it back. Lakshman said, this is not actual deer. It looks too good to be true. Something is fishy about it. So she said, Lakshman, you are very suspicious. Ram, can you please get it? And then Ram went in to get the deer. And the deer kept running away. And as it took more and more time, Sita also became a little concerned. She was a little concerned, then she became a little worried, then she became fearful. And then suddenly she heard the voice. Hey Lakshman, hey Sita! And when he heard it, she just panicked completely. And she said, Lakshman, Ram is in danger. Please go and help him. Now Lakshman was not even the least disturbed. Lakshman said, that's not Ram. That's just the same demon impersonating in the voice of Ram. Now what was Lakshman trying to do? Lakshman realized there's some kind of big problem over here. So he's expecting that some demon will attack from somewhere, and he had to be on guard to protect Sita. So his focus was on protecting Sita physically at that time. And that's why he said, it's no big deal. He didn't really pay much attention to her emotional state. But for Sita at that time, there was a lot of emotions going on. There was also, it's like if you consider emotions, there's concern. From there it became worry. Then it became panic. But along with panic, there is also guilt. I sent him into trouble. Isn't it? For my desire, he has gone into the forest. So all those emotions were colliding in a turbulent way inside her. And when Lakshman seemed almost dismissive. He said, that's not Ram. He says, you think I can't recognize my husband's voice? You think that you know my husband's voice better than what I know? She said, that is Ram's voice. That is Ram. No, that's not Ram. So what happened was, Sita was disturbed and Lakshman was trying to pacify Sita, but his focus was on protecting Sita. So now Sita was disturbed because she thought Ram is in danger. But then when Lakshman tried to pacify her, but without really paying attention, that's not Ram. She felt dismissed. And she felt his dismissive attitude, and that angered her even further. It's like sometimes we are disturbed about something and we tell the other person, and if that person is not disturbed, then we get even more disturbed. Isn't it? First we are disturbed about the event, and then we are disturbed that the other person is not disturbed about the event. So it was just a tragic sequence that happened. But now, so there is a subjective side and an objective side. And subjective cannot just be dismissed. And the opposite of factual is not delusional over here. It's not imaginary. It is experiential. Because the experience we have may arise from some facts, but it does not arise only from the facts. See, when we have an experience, when we experience something, the experience is a combination of perception from outside, but it's also some recollection from inside. And together, they trigger an emotion that is at the heart of the experience. Remember yesterday I talked about samskara? Samskara is that there is small, everybody has some scar inside us. So like a small perception, but a huge reaction. Somebody has been bitten by a dog, then as soon as they see a dog, they get scared. So that's why the dog might be, the perception might be insignificant. The perception might be only 5%, but the recollection might be 95%. And then what comes up seems to be huge. So now, we cannot dismiss the other person's experience. So when we are talking about tolerance, now I have moved on to the second point here, the implication. Broad tolerance means that with our intelligence, we know what is a big thing, what is a small thing, and we move forward based on that. But in the implication, I'm saying that what is a big thing and what is a small thing, that can be different for different people. So now somebody may say, it's not such a big deal. Say we come to a particular place, we come to a satsang program, and then we greet someone, and that person doesn't greet us back. Now, that's annoying. But I know some devotees that, if nobody greets them back, I'm never going to come to this program only. Now we may say that's an overreaction, but not necessarily. You say, for some people, when they come for a satsang program, their primary thing is they want to hear the class. For some other people, coming to a program is more like coming in a community. It's more of not so much of intellectual reason as a social reason. It's not so much intellectual understanding, intellectual growth as social growth. This is a group of people. And that I want to belong to. And if somebody doesn't greet us at that time, we greet someone and that person doesn't just greet us back. Says, what am I doing over here? Hey, if somebody doesn't even have the courtesy to greet me, then why should I even come here? Isn't it? And that's a reasonable question. It's not the other person may say, don't take it so seriously. Maybe the host was very busy. The host didn't notice you. Maybe the host had so many things to do at that time. That's why the host didn't pay attention. Don't take it so seriously. But if somebody is taking it very seriously, that does not mean that they are just a sentimental person. So what is a big thing and what is a small thing? That depends on the experience of the person. So there is an external perception, external event that has happened, and there is an internal memory and that is triggered by that. Maybe nowadays a lot of people experience a lot of loneliness. And loneliness is bad enough, but it's an increasingly problematic situation. Loneliness is where a person does not have friends. But beyond loneliness is rejection. Where somebody tried to have friends, but they have repeatedly been rejected. So loneliness can be corrected by developing friends. But if that person has repeatedly accepted rejection, experienced rejection, then they are lonely, but they are very afraid of even trying to make friends. And then from rejection can come insecurity or low self-worth. Maybe I am not worth enough. Maybe there is something wrong with me because of which nobody will become a friend with me. Now when this third is there, it becomes very difficult. Some people say, if you don't have friends, you just need to improve your social skills. Well, yes, social skills is one part of it. But what is much more important is to have some self-confidence. That I am also worth being a friend to. That somebody will want to be a friend with me. So why am I talking about this right now? For somebody who has low self-worth or who has experienced rejection, when they come to a program and just somebody doesn't greet them when they greet them back. For that person, that non-greeting, in English the word used is snub. If you are snubbed by someone, that is, you greet someone and the person just doesn't pay attention to you. Being snubbed will be far bigger a thing than somebody who has many friends and somebody who has good self-esteem. Okay, this person, maybe they're going through something. Maybe this person is weird. It's like, it's about you, it's not about me. That's how. But for some people, they may take it very personally. And then it becomes a problem. So, when we are talking about tolerance, there is the subjective and the objective. Now, some people may dismiss the subjective as just imaginary or delusional, but it's not that simple. That person has experienced it in that way. Now, it is also possible, just to conclude this point in a circle, when I say experiential, so what are we trying to discuss over here? In the implication, we are discussing that to keep big things big and to keep small things small. So what are the big things for someone? So what are the big things for someone? That is something which we are trying to understand. So big things are often the experiential things. It's based on our experience. What is a big thing and what is a small thing? And experiential is, it's like there's perception plus recollection. What it triggers within me. So sometimes it may be perception is 50%, recollection is 50%. Sometimes perception may be 0, recollection may be 100 also. That means nothing has actually happened, but that person imagines something has happened. And sometimes the perception may be 100, recollection may be 0. That means actually it's a very grievous incident. Somebody like very severely insulted. So there's a wide variety. So what's a big thing and what's a small thing? That's something which there will be a individual element to it. And I'm trying to understand, if somebody is disturbed, just telling them tolerate. That may not work. Because how much are they disturbed? That is the key thing. Some disturbance might be slight, some disturbance might be severe for somebody. So, now, about dealing when somebody lives too much inside their head. You are imagining insults. You are imagining disrespect. Like maybe there are 5 people over there and we greet one person over there and that person doesn't even see us because there are so many people around. But we imagine that person disrespected me. That's also possible. So we will discuss about separating the factual from the non-factual more in tomorrow's session. But the implication is here that small things and big things, there is a big amount of subjectivity to it. So that's why it's important to understand people. It's important to understand different people and see why something is important for someone. And sometimes this intolerance, we say be tolerant, but sometimes our spirituality, our bhakti is meant to increase our tolerance. But sometimes it may increase our intolerance. How can it happen? It increases our intolerance. Suppose in bhakti, we consider certain standards to be very important. And so then if those standards are not being followed, we might get very angry. So when I travel across the world, so when I was the first 10 years of my brahmacharya life, I was staying in Pune in the ashram and I was in Mumbai. So at that time, we brahmacharis, we would shave each other's heads. We don't go to a barber to get it shaved. But then when I was traveling constantly, there's no one, so I had to shave my own head. And with respect to physical activities, I'm a bit clumsy. So 2 things would happen. Sometimes I would cut my head and sometimes I would cut my shikha only. So now, according to our philosophy, is that shikha represents Krishna. Like, those are impersonalists. They cut off all their hair. So once I was giving a class, and then there was one devotee, he got his city in America. There are many senior devotees. So he said, he says, Prabhupada, that you are sitting and giving class. Prabhupada will be crying and not in ecstasy. He says in pain. That somebody who has adopted a Mayavadi hairstyle is sitting on a ISKCON Vyasasana and giving a class. Now, it's just absent-minded. When I'm generally hearing some class or doing something, I get very bored while doing physical activities. So sometimes it just happens, I just cut off my shikha. And that's not a good thing. But is that such a big thing that you have to make a big issue in the class? So, now for that devotee, it's a big thing. Now I don't want to devalue what it is. But, okay, there's a sentiment over there. But it's not that big a thing, objectively speaking. Especially, he could have talked with me privately. If in a class he's going to speak it just disturbs everyone else's mind. Mm-hmm. So when we say, sometimes as devotees, we consider some standards to be very important. And if somebody is not following that standard, then what happens? We come off as very intolerant because of that. So, nowadays in India, there are a lot of young people who are coming to temples now. And I think it's among Indians, it's happening outside India also. Now, young people, boys and girls, they may be in a relationship. They come together on the same bike or in the same car. But they come to a temple and they want to take darshan. Sometimes they want to take selfie with the deities. So in Radha Gopinath temple, this was happening. And the devotees asked my spiritual master, Radhanath Maharaj, that, if people want to take selfie with the deities, so what should we do? So Maharaj said that, it's not good that people turn their back towards the deities. He said, we definitely should write that no selfies with the deities. You can just take the photos. But then the devotees the managers asked, if somebody is taking pictures, we have noticed, but still people take, then what should we do? Should we stop them? So Maharaj became thoughtful and he said, don't stop them. He says, because he said that once we make it a rule that we should stop people, we can't control how people will stop other people. He said, there are some people who get a great joy in forcing others to follow rules. And then he said, yes, turning the back to the deities is not a good thing. But people will learn about it. But if people have a bad experience at the temple, somebody yells at them when they come to the temple, how you are committing an aprad, why are you turning your back to the deities? And these young people, they have many options. They will just stop coming to the temple. So now somebody else may say, no, they're coming to the temple, they should have that much culture. They should know that they should not. So there is a subjective element to it. But in this case, see, there's a traditional particular standard and there is a contemporary concern. We want young people to come to the temples. So what is a big thing and what is a small thing? There can be difference of opinion about that. And if people start perceiving that we are being very intolerant, they'll say, I don't want to come to this temple. I don't want to go to this group. So now some things may be big things for us and we think this should also be big things for others. But they will become big things with time. We cannot expect them to be big things right from the beginning. So sometimes bhakti can make us, unfortunately, a bit more intolerant unnecessarily. So that's the second point about tolerance being, the implication is we have to be careful that what I consider a big thing, I cannot impose. So what is my big thing, I cannot necessarily make it into others' big thing. That kind of imposition cannot be done. And similarly, my small thing, I cannot impose that. And others also, you should also make it a small thing. Why are you making such a big thing? So that imposition cannot work. Now, of course, everyone has to grow up. And grow up means that we all need to learn that I cannot, there's some things are big and I need to take them seriously. And some things are small and I need to keep them small. So now the takeaway, I'll move towards that and then we can have some questions. Broadly speaking, see, with respect to tolerance, we can go towards two extremes. One is that we can make small things too big. And the other is we can make big things small. And both ways it will be a problem. If you make small things too big, that's where it's intolerance. Now, on the other hand, if you make things too small, that will be impotence. We will just be powerless. We are not doing anything. So, for example, if I am giving a class and some baby starts crying in the class. Now, if a baby is crying, that is a distraction. It is an inconvenience in speaking the class. So now, is that a small thing or is it a big thing? Depends on how much you can tolerate. That's like it's like a cyclic answer over here, you know. So, okay. So, but it is, I would say at a simple level, it depends on how long the baby is crying. The baby is crying for a few seconds, for a minute, and then the mother comforts the baby or the parent comforts the baby. Or they're not able to comfort the baby, silence the baby, then they go to some other room, there to leave. So now, to make a small thing big would be that it is, if a baby is crying and I just yell at the mother, can't you control your baby? What kind of mother are you? You're disturbing everyone. And now at the end of the class, if I speak like that, however good my the class I have given, what the audience will remember is how I yelled at the mother. Isn't it? So, what was a small thing, okay, the baby was crying for a half a minute or whatever, I made it into a big thing. On the other hand, if there's a baby that is crying constantly. I was in Seattle, I was doing a program, and there was one baby, well, not a baby, so like maybe 4 years old girl. She was just running around throughout the class. And I look at the organizer, and the organizer was doing nothing about it. And then, at one time, that baby just came. I was sitting over here. That baby came right next to me and she's looking at what I was writing. And then that I won't call it a baby, toddler, whatever, small girl, she wanted to take my pen and write something. And nobody was doing anything. Now I didn't know, should I do something, should I not do something? Then I decided, okay. I just smiled at her and then she ran away and she continued playing. We finished the class and then afterwards I asked the devotees that, what was going on over here? So they told me, it was quite interesting. This was a Western outreach program and it was in an area which was a bit of a high crime area. So there is some like some parts of America, there's a lot of crime. So that woman, she was a Western woman, she was the girlfriend of the local underworld don. And that so now I just had to be peaceful at that time. So sometimes Prabhupada also had to do that. So that sometimes people would just go crazy after taking drugs, after taking LSD, and then Prabhupada had to just tolerate that. So now fortunately most of the times we don't have to do that. But the point is that sometimes the small thing can be made very big and sometimes the big thing can be made very small. And both ways it's a problem. So tolerance should lead us to what? Two things. Tolerance is we keep the small things small so that we can keep the big things big. If small things become big, then the big things will become small. So tolerance has a purpose. And that's why having our intelligence clear to know what to tolerate and what not to tolerate. So when is tolerance helpful? Tolerance is helpful when we keep small things small. When is tolerance harmful? When we let big things become small. So now what could mean a big thing? Objectively I'll talk about big things. Making big things small, there could be three things. So for example, if somebody is feeling so emotionally suffocated that they become dysfunctional because of that. They just can't function. See, then, like Trunada P. Sunichanave said, the point is Kirtaniya Sadahari. But if somebody is constantly nagging us, somebody is constantly disrespecting us, somebody is constantly correcting us, and because of that, we become so agitated that we just can't function at all, then at that time, tolerance may not be healthy. That does not mean we have to become intolerant and we have to beat up the other person, but that time, it means we may have to create some distance. We may have to do something to change the situation so that we can have some peace of mind. So that our mind is a little more peaceful and we can function. Now beyond that, if there is physical harm that is being caused, so that time, tolerating is not a good thing. So the Kauravas had tried to kill the Pandavas, they had tried to dishonor Draupadi, and they had shown no remorse at all. The Pandavas tolerated Draupadi being dishonored. That itself could be questioned. In fact, there are some South Indian acharyas who say that in that Draupadi disrobing incident, everybody except Draupadi did adharma. Draupadi was the only person who was trying to remind everyone of dharma. Even the Pandavas, they chose or they prioritized dasya dharma over pati dharma. Dasya dharma is that, we have been won over, we are lost to them, we are become their slaves. So the slave has to obey the master. But even slaves have basic human rights. There is a decency with this, slaves are to be treated. So they prioritize that over their pati dharma of protecting their rights. So even what they did was not right. But of course, that incident was such a shocking incident, such an unprecedented incident, that nobody knew properly how to react. So it sometimes it can happen to all of us that we just get like what they call as a brain freeze, blackout or a brain freeze. Something so shocking is happening, we are not even aware what we did. Like sometimes in suspense, like in investigative fiction or crime fiction, crime dramas, like somebody comes across a crime scene and they say somebody has been killed, and they don't even remember what I did after that. No, when did I call the police? What did I do? How did I touch that? So it's like that. Sometimes the brain can freeze. But the point is that the Pandavas tolerated that. You could say question that, but they tolerated it. They went through their sentence of 12 plus 1 years in exile. But when Krishna went as a peace messenger and Duryodhan tried to do the same thing to Krishna, not disrobe him, but disrespect him by arresting him. And the Pandavas said, enough is enough. This person has no desire even to change. There is not even the slightest bit of regret. They had to take strong action. So, when there is physical harm, there is physical injury, then at that time, tolerance is not desirable. Similarly, there can be something legal. Legal wrongs could be there. So at that time, also, whether tolerance should be done or not, that's something just to be carefully questioned. So, now tolerance is important, and I'll make one last point within this, making big things small, that in general, religion, I might get some time to talk about this tomorrow, but it's an important point that whenever religion becomes organized, becomes in the form of an institution, there are a lot of people who have suspicion about that. I just don't want to be a part of it. It's all become corrupted. And that is a possibility. It can become corrupted. It doesn't have to. But I'll explain what happens. It's like if there is a top of a mountain and then there is a ocean. Now a river needs to go towards the ocean. So for the ocean is like Krishna. The top of the mountain is basically where we are, the material world. And now each of us, our spiritual longing is like a trickle of water. A small trickle. Now, is it possible for the trickle to get to the ocean on its own? It's very difficult. Unless the trickle is very, very strong, it's very difficult. So for each one of us, we may have spiritual interest, but if you have to do it all alone, some people say, I don't want to be involved in the organization. And there are valid concerns about that. But if a person is trying to do it all alone, it's going to be very difficult. It's like a trickle trying to get to the ocean. But when many trickles of water come together, it becomes a river. Now the river is like a community. A river is a sangha. Now sangha is very important. But as a river starts flowing and a river continues flowing, then under the river, a bed is formed. Now the bed, the river bed, is meant to help the river to move smoothly. The river bed is like the organization. So when a community of people come together, that is what we call a sanstha. So when a number of people come together, the community is formed, they want some infrastructure by which the community's activities can move on smoothly. So now you have so many nice programs going on, you hire some halls. Now you want to have a temple over here. That's like so that you can have infrastructure by which things can move forward more smoothly. So if a river keeps flowing, a riverbed is very convenient. So in that sense, an organization is nothing but a community creating infrastructure for its spiritual growth, for its spiritual resources, whatever are required for the spiritual growth. But unfortunately, once there is a well-established riverbed, and a river is going to flow regularly, then some people might come and build a dam over there. Now when the dam is built, then what happens? The water can no longer flow ahead. Now this, what is this dam? That Bhakti Chakur is Puja Labh Pratishtha. That when people come with ulterior motives, when people come not for spiritual growth, but for pride, adoration, distinction, basically for power. So when people come for ulterior motives, when people come seeking power, now power is just one thing, power, prestige, all those things, then they may utilize, they may abuse or misuse these resources for their own purposes. And when that happens, then the water no longer flows toward the ocean. So now this is a possibility. It is not an inevitability. It is a possibility, it can happen, but it doesn't have to happen. That's why we have to be on guard. So now, for the river to move along the bed is very comfortable. But the point of the flow of the river is not being comfortable. The point of the river flow is to get to the ocean. So if a dam is being formed, then either the dam has to be broken down or the river has to learn to flow in some other way. So when Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur was there, he built the Gaudiya Math. And the Gaudiya Math was like a rich river with a wonderful bed below it. But when the Gaudiya Math splintered, much of the preaching stopped. Prabhupada tried to do preaching through the Gaudiya Math. He tried to assist his godbrothers. But when that didn't work out, Prabhupada created ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, like a different riverbed. So for us, when we are trying to tolerate in the community of devotees, there will be differences of opinion and we all need to tolerate. One devotee may say that, oh, we should distribute books. Another devotee may say that, no, first we should build a temple. Some other devotee may say that, no, we should be studying Shastra. What is the use of distributing books if we don't know Shastra? Some devotees may say, actually, we should make sure that everybody is waking up in the morning and doing sadhana properly. Without sadhana, there is nothing of value. Now, all these devotees are valid in the sense that each of these things are important. But everybody cannot treat everything as equally important all the time. If we make everything important, we make ourselves important. Say like if all of you come for this class, now in one sense everyone is important for me as a speaker. I'm grateful to every one of you that you come for the class. But if one of you is asking a question, and at that time I start paying equal attention to everyone, then I will not be able to pay attention to anyone. When a person is asking a question, I have to pay attention to that person. So we have to decide. So different devotees in our movement may have different things which they may consider important. And that can lead to differences of opinion. And that is fair enough. So when we tolerate, Srila Prabhupada has got like a giant umbrella. This is Srila Prabhupada's umbrella at the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Now within that, different devotees, Prabhupada disciples, Prabhupada grand disciples, those who are leaders in our movement, each of them carries one small umbrella. So somebody may say, okay, let's focus on book distribution. Somebody may say that let's build temples. Somebody may say let's focus on deity worship standards. Somebody else may say let's focus on sadhana standards. Somebody else may say that we need to have Vaishnava etiquette properly. Somebody else may say that we need to have Go Seva. Somebody else may say we need Western outreach. Somebody else may say, oh, we need schools for our children. So now each of these is important. But some things maybe just outside the domain of bhakti. If somebody says that, as in America, at the interfaith meeting, so I was in an interfaith meeting and they were talking about a church in which inside the church they have got a casino. Now they say people are anyway going to go to casinos. At least if the church is next to a casino, people who are going to casino will come to a church. Now is that acceptable? That's outrageous, isn't it? What are the next thing that you're going to have in a church? So now there are certain things which cannot be accepted. Somebody says, okay, people are anyway going to eat non-veg food. So in the temple in the Govidas we'll have non-veg. At least they are taking non-veg food, they may see some vegetarian food and that is prasad, they will get some prasad. Okay. That, as some individual devotee who has their restaurant, they cannot give non-vegetarian food, cooking, that's okay for them. But as a temple, they'll have to have some boundaries. So some things can be tolerated, some things can't be tolerated. But the point is that as devotees, there is a lot that that may be a big thing for us, but that may be a small thing for someone else. And that's okay. So for somebody else it may be a big thing and maybe a small thing for us. So when the way I'm talking emotionally healthy spirituality means that we don't impose what is a big thing for us on others. And we don't assume that because what is a big thing for me is not being done by someone else, therefore that person is not a serious devotee. Or that person is not a devotee at all. Maybe, maybe not. So this way, if we learn, so tolerate means in this context, how can tolerance improve our emotional health? That this is a theme I'll talk about in tomorrow's class lastly, but Krishna says in 12.15 that we live in a world where what happens is, if I am in a relationship with you, I disturb you and you disturb me. And together, we create a disturbed world. A disturbed family, a disturbed society, and a disturbed world. But what Krishna says is, instead of this, he says, Yasman no dvijate loko. Don't disturb others. Yasman no dvijate loko. Lokan no dvijate chaya. Don't be disturbed by others. Harshamarsha bhayodvegair mukto yah sachame priyaha. Krishna says, such a devotee is dear to me. So, when we understand that, for some other devotees, some things may be bigger. For me, some things may be bigger. So, sometimes we may have disagreements, but that's okay. As long as that devotee is also trying to serve Krishna in some other way, that devotee is also working in some way, then it's okay. We don't have to accept what they are doing, in the sense that we don't have to adopt it. We don't have to propagate it. But okay, it's like live and let live. So that way, tolerance can help us to keep our mind peaceful, and it will help others to keep their mind peaceful. And that way, tolerance can improve our own emotional health as we pursue our spirituality. So I'll summarize what we discussed about tolerance today. Again, so tolerance and emotionally healthy spirituality. I talked about three. All of you gave some very good points about tolerance in the beginning. So we took the same framework of concept. So concept was what? We discussed the progression. 2.14 is tolerance. But before tolerance, what comes is? Intelligence. 2.30. Understand what is a big thing and what is a small thing. To see things in their proper perspective. And then that leads to what? Transcendence. That we will actually, some things will become too small for us to worry about. We'll go beyond certain things. So tolerance has a purpose. And then within the implication, I talked about the subjectivity of tolerance. That when we talk about our any situation, what is a big thing? So we could say that's based on factual, but it's not really based on factual. Often it is experiential. How a person is experiencing something. And the experiential is often a combination of two things. One is, it's a perception, what happened, that's external. And then there is recollection, what it stimulates within somebody, what it triggers inside someone. And how much of what, that can vary from person to person. So that's why we cannot impose, like, what is our big thing, we cannot make it into others' big thing. And similarly, what is others' small thing, our small thing, we cannot impose that. You should also treat it as small. So for this, we discussed the example of Lakshman and Sita. That Lakshman was actually concerned, not that he didn't care for Sita, but at that time, he was concerned about Sita's physical safety. And Sita was in a state of emotional angst at that time. And that's why there was a misunderstanding. And then the takeaway for us was that we want to avoid both extremes. That tolerance means that we don't want to make small things big. At the same time, we don't want to make big things small. So with respect to making big things small, I give 3 examples. One is about if we feel suffocated. We just are not able to suffocation to the point of we just can't function. Then we have to create some space so that we can be away. Second is if there is some physical harm or there is some legal wrong. In those cases, we can't call it just a small thing. Now when we say a small thing is becoming big, there we discussed how different devotees can have different emphasis in bhakti. There can be different emphasis. There can be different moods in bhakti. We talked about how Srila Prabhupada has a giant umbrella. Within that, different devotees may have different umbrellas. One word I use is that Prabhupada had one mission, but many moods. that sometimes we use mission and mood as interchangeable, but Prabhupada had many moods. So different moods are there. We should learn to tolerate them and not make things too much agitated. In this way, if we function, if we keep the small things small, then what will happen is we will be able to come in the association of devotees, and we will be able to keep the big things. We will be able to grow in our bhakti. The result of this ultimately is that when we learn to tolerate, I don't disturb you, and I don't get disturbed by you. I can't control you so that you don't do things which are disturbing, but I don't get disturbed by you. And in that way, we can move ahead in our spiritual life. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. I know it's already a little late, but any one or two questions quickly? Yes, Mataji. Where is the mic?
Very quick one. You said that big things are often experiential.
I'm not saying big things are experiential. I'm saying that what somebody considers to be a big thing is experiential for them. So there's a slight difference between that.
So can we say that whenever Krishna gives a clarion call, so in the Bhagavad Gita there are many verses which are clarion call, they are objective and they are not experiential, they are objective which apply to everyone.
Yeah, definitely. Say, like if in a class somebody says that, now this is the topic of the class today, this is what I'm going to speak on, then that is clearly the big thing over there. But at the end of a class, if we talk with 10 devotees, each 10 participants, each person may say, oh, this point struck me, that point struck me. So now that point may be what is struck to them, that's subjective. But the class was about a particular topic, isn't it? So there can be many things which a person can learn from the Bhagavad Gita. But that what we learn from the Gita, we cannot claim that that is the most important teaching from the Gita. So yes, certain things which are like Sarvadharman Parityajya is there. So broadly, what is spoken in the beginning, what is spoken at the end, what is repeated many times, what is spoken most emphatically, and what is spoken uniquely which is not spoken anywhere else. Those are the 5 parameters, broadly speaking, by which you can know, which is what is a special part of a special book. Thank you. Yes, please.
May be big for somebody else. How do you actually make that person realize that is, not a big thing? Because it is experiential, as you say, and how can we go about getting them to understand it's not a big thing?
Maybe the first thing is that we have to understand why it is a big thing for them. Because many times when somebody is agitated, the agitation is partly about the event and partly about the feeling that nobody values me. Nobody values my perception, my emotion, my concerns. So many times if somebody is agitated, we just hear them non-judgmentally and just give them a patient hearing. That itself will decrease substantially the agitation of the other person. But while they are speaking, instead of hearing, immediately we start at that time analyzing and trying to show them how this is not a big thing. It will not work. Then, so that's the first thing. First, give them a patient hearing. Second is, either we can explain from our perspective or get them to talk with people from other perspectives. That means, that for some people, cleanliness is very important. Now, cleanliness is important, no doubt. But among the things is cleanliness number 1, number 2, number 3, number 10, number 100. Now number 100 may not be very good. But for some people, okay, if I'm coming to a particular, cleanliness is not the most important thing. So some people just can't tolerate cleanliness. And that's a good thing. We want to keep things clean. But then we can't impose that on others. That doesn't mean that cleanliness is not important at all. So if we can help people to see things from others' perspective, then it helps to understand why somebody is speaking in a particular way, somebody is doing things in a particular way. There's one devotee, and as in Pune, he used to give classes, and his since my childhood, I was very good at English. Maybe even if not good at English, I was very interested in words. And this devotee his classes would be like a massacre of the English language. And I just found it so difficult to tolerate it. One day he came to me and he said, Prabhu, your class was terrible. And he had a big smile on his face. I said, this is okay. Then I tried to understand what is going on. And then I realized that he wanted to say your class was terrific. So then he told me that he came from a village, and although he read English books, before he came to ISKCON, he had never spoken in English. So now he is giving classes in English. So when I got that background, I started understanding, okay, maybe I should not be judging him so harshly. So in many ways, if we try to understand where people are coming from, then it's easier to tolerate them, to see where they are coming from. Okay, thank you. Yes, Mataji.
Prabhuji, just a quick question. That's my experience. I think that's my experience that Krishna consciousness also teaches you tolerance, because you leave everything to Krishna and you think that, okay, if someone is harming me, Krishna is going to work on it, and you let it go. And you get immensely, tolerant about things. But then I don't know whether there's a confusion. Is it good to be tolerant, or you need to get up and say enough, or leave it to Krishna?
That is the whole topic tomorrow, because there's a principle. Krishna consciousness is about two distinct things. One is, say, if I am here, what happens to me if Krishna is above me? What happens to me? Accepting what happens to me is I accepting Krishna's will. That is tolerance. That is Krishna consciousness. When Draupadi could not do anything, at that time she just raised her hand and surrendered to Krishna. But that is not the only way we relate with Krishna. It is also, Krishna consciousness is accepting the responsibility to do Krishna's will. That is also Krishna consciousness. So at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is also surrendering. But Arjuna's surrender is not raising his hands. He's not raising his arms. He's raising his arms. He's raising his weapons. He's saying, not that I accept your will. He's saying, I accept the responsibility to do your will. Karishye vachanam tava. So both can be Krishna conscious. And that's why it's certainly many times when things are beyond our control and we accept it, that just gives us a certain level of peace. And that's good. Tyaga shantiranantaram. But there are times when on behalf of Krishna we need to act. So it's not always that whatever is happening, accepting that is Krishna consciousness. We'll talk about this more tomorrow. But Krishna consciousness is multifaceted. Both ways are there in it. Okay?
Thank you, Prabhu.
You want to add something? Okay. So tomorrow we'll talk about, this is a good note to conclude it. Tomorrow we will talk about how our bhakti relates with our Krishna consciousness, and how our bhakti relates with tolerance, and how when we are praying, when we are feeling very hurt by something, then should we pray to Krishna for it? Or does pure devotional service mean that we should never pray to Krishna for anything material? So the topic is, does what matter to me matter to Krishna? So how much should we tolerate? How much in the mood of Krishna consciousness, should we try to change things? That will be discussed in tomorrow's class, which will be our last session. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Shri Krishna Bhagavan ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki, Hitai Gaur Premanandi.
Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. I'm sure after this we are in a position to tolerate big things as big and small things as small, which is so important for us. And as Prabhu mentioned, tomorrow's class, what matters to me, does it matter to Krishna? That is the next step. which is again coming from today's tolerance, and then coming from mind tolerance, and then what matters to me, what matters to doesn't matter to Krishna. So I request everyone to please attend tomorrow. Please do not miss out. And a big thanks to His Grace Vijay Gopikesh Prabhu for opening up Jagannath Ashram for all of us. Hari 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 Bol. This is a very familiar place where we always have our Bhakti Shastri classes here. So by default, the feet comes here. So it's a very familiar place for us. So we feel very thankful, Prabhu. Thanks to you, and we feel so comfortable here. So thanks again. So please let us have prasadam, and Prabhu is having the books.
So these are a couple of books. So much of what I spoke about tolerance, actually it's there in this book. There's a title called Life Determines Our Problems, We Determine Their Size. So this is basically Gita for the CEO. It's about how the Gita's teachings can be applied in our daily life in the corporate world. So there are some simple conceptographics and diagrams which explain the concepts over here. And there are 10 principles from the Gita which can help us in our daily life. It's published by HarperCollins, a national bestseller, and it's also not just for CEOs, for anyone who we all meant to become the CEO of our own life. And it's also a good bridge book to give to anyone who is not yet able to connect with the Gita directly. And this is prayers inspired by the Bhagavad Gita. There's one prayer on each page, and it's based on one verse from the Gita. There's a beautiful picture of a deity of Krishna. And each of these is basically a way in which we can pour our heart out to Krishna. There are prayers for various occasions. Prayers when we feel lonely or misunderstood. Prayers when we feel lost and directionless in our life. Prayers when we feel spiritually very disconnected and dry in our bhakti. Prayers when our desires are going wild and unmanageable. So there are prayers for all occasions. So both these books are available if any of you would like to have. I'll be here for a few minutes to sign the books. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanand.